I did say that we're changing gears to more serious matters, but guess what? Just before Father Limuku left here, our next guest was saying, do you know he's my constituent? I said, oh dear, when is this farm thing going to end? In any case, Benue comes into focus now on Tuesday, beg your pardon, when the House of Representatives did reconvene. Security was at the forefront of part of the things that were discussed in the House of Representatives. And of course, Benue State came into focus. There had been conversations earlier, even on this program, as to what the root causes of the current resurgence of insecurity in Benue State could be. And we had heard from a member of the House of Reps, no less than the deputy spokesperson of the House, who said, that's Honorable Philip Agbese, who attributed it to a suspension of the open grazing, anti-open grazing law in the state. But there has been some disagreement. I mean, the governor of the state certainly disagrees with that. I'm uncertain we're going to be getting another perspective on what precisely could be happening across the country, because it's not only Benue State that is experiencing this insecurity. Plateau State has also come under a bit of fire, and a number of other states around the north-central region have felt a bit of this fire. Well, we're being joined now by Honorable Tessa Ubo, who is a member of the House of Representatives representing Kwande Ushongo Federal Constituency, and also the Deputy Chairman of the Committee on Environment. Honorable, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So your state has come under the spotlight, sadly not for the most pleasant reasons. We're talking about the lives, the property and lives of over 80 people who have lost their lives in a recent attack on different parts, mostly in the Otukpo area of your state. And the sort of rhetoric that have come out of leaders from that state has left us wondering whether politics hasn't come to play in terms of how, these discussions are being held on what needs to be done to even bring it, to quell it. What exactly is your take on what has happened in your state, and what information can you give us with regards to what precisely could be happening?
Yeah, thank you very much. Before I go into that, let me just congratulate the Catholics on the new Pope. We're all excited, and we hope that his emergence will bring stability and peace across the world.
Amen.
You see, we have a fundamental problem in the country, not just in Benue. We have a resurgence of insecurity in Nigeria. And like you said, the Tuesday plenary made it very clear. Members from Benue, from Yobe, spoke loud and clear that Boko Haram is back, and they are back stronger. So what we're seeing across the country is an offshoot, it's a spread across the country of a new sect of terrorism that is spreading across Nigeria. And unfortunately, many of the states, especially states in the north-central of the country, they usually serve as a buffer between the top north of the country and the southern Nigeria are taking the brunt of these attacks. And it's obvious that what is happening is that they are picking soft targets, they're picking vulnerable communities, they are land grabbing, and they're trying to occupy many swaths of our country. So it is imperative that we look at the problem of insecurity in Nigeria from a more dispassionate point of view, that we keep the sentiment and the political views aside a little bit, and we really look at how we can secure our nation, Nigeria.
So you were alarmed when you heard maybe I should ask you very directly if you were alarmed when you heard your colleagues speak about what was going on in your state, and also the response of the side of the governor when they give their own rebuttal to some of the things that your colleague had said.
I was very alarmed. I was very alarmed that, that politicians in Benue will try to politicize this issue and speak like we are in a campaign session, or a campaign mode talking about insecurity, and blaming disgruntled politicians for causing insecurity in Benue. The problem is way beyond Benue. It's a Nigerian problem. I sat on the floor of the House and listened to my colleagues talk about insecurity and talk about the number of soldiers that are being killed. The numbers of soldiers that are being killed, even in my constituency. Soldiers have been killed every single day.
Military men?
Military men have been killed. Military barracks are being invaded by these terrorist organizations. And they are very strong. They are very sophisticated. You heard about the use of drones that was mentioned on the floor. that the terrorists are using drones.
So was that when you came to the conclusion that this is actually more serious than it looks? Or did you have that information prior to the debate that happened on the floor of the House?
No, we've had information that this problem is a growing problem. It's a national problem. It's happening in Jos, it's happening in Benue, it's happening in Kaduna, it's happening all across the country, you know? So it's obviously terrorism that is going on. Because what other agenda could there be? We're talking about farmer-herder conflict, but this doesn't look like farmer-herder conflict anymore. This looks like a proper and systematic attempt to invade communities, take over land, and establish presence across the country.
You think this is a land grab?
It's a land grab, but not a land grab for agriculture. Not a land grab for herders, you know. It looks more like an economic land grab and a creation of bases, creation of stations across the country where maybe they can launch attacks into further inland into the country. Benue is in the north central. We are mainly, I'll say, a landlocked state, you know, even though we have the border with Cameroon. But they're not coming through Cameroon. They're coming through Nigeria. And so if the terrorist organizations, or if the armed herders, as we call them, have infiltrated the country and are currently stationed in the middle of the country, in camps in the middle of the country, and we are not able to flush them out, then we are not safe.
Who's they?
The government, we, the citizens.
No, you said you said this land grab has been done by some people who are, you said it's to set up bases, take over the place. Who are you referring to?
Armed terrorist organizations.
Okay.
Which, if it's Boko Haram, if it's ISWAP, we've heard of a new one that came up recently. So they're spreading across the country very systematically. They are very well armed. The information is known to the government, is known to the military. We have the information. I have the information. I've visited my community just recently. I donated a border patrol station in my community to aid the activities of the security personnel. And we had engagements with them. And it's obvious what is going on. You know, so how do we secure the country?
How is it happening? Because you just mentioned right now that you feel like the government knows. Mm-hmm. How is this happening with the knowledge of government, in your view?
Well, you may know that there's a problem, but you may not have the wherewithal to tackle it.
Our government doesn't have the wherewithal to handle this situation.
It's been said many times that the terrorists seem to be more equipped than the Nigerian military. It was said on the floor of the House. So if members of the House of Reps can get up on the floor and say that the Nigerian military is not as well equipped as the terrorist groups that are attacking the communities, then it's obvious that something is wrong. And this is first-hand information that we're providing. We're members of the National Assembly. We represent the people. Our primary responsibility is to speak up for the people and speak up when we see things going wrong. Call the attention of the executive arm of government to the issues that we are observing in our communities. And we are saying that there's an invasion of our communities. And these guys are stronger, they are more sophisticated. We've tried a lot, we've tried to do a lot to try to push them out, but it's proving very, very difficult.
I'm sure you must be bothered about the political divisions, which doesn't seem to allow for cohesion to fight this common enemy called insecurity. Have you been able to reach out to other political actors within your state to say, guys, we're getting this wrong. Well, you know, this is not the way we should be viewing this particular problem currently bedeviling us. Have you done that? And if you have, what is the response that you're getting?
Well, you know, politics usually comes in the way. You know, it always gets in the way of unity, of logical reasoning, you know, in terms of finding solutions to this problem. And we know that several of the state governments are doing their best. They're trying different things to see what works and how they can protect their people. Because at the end of the day, what state governments need to do is to try to protect the people, protect the communities as much as possible through any means possible. And then look for ways to do soft diplomacy, you know, in terms of negotiating, in terms of discussions, peace building and things like that at the state level. And then there's also logistical support that state governments can provide to the security agencies. You know, there are community policing strategies that can be used to protect these communities. There's a lot that can be done, but when there's political divisions and nobody is listening to each other, then there's a tendency that there's a break in communication. We, as National Assembly members, have a lot of information, especially those of us who are on committees where we're privy to a lot of inside information. I heard one of the guests here say that the governor has more information than... It's not true. He has information. We also have a lot of information that we could share with him. But if he's not working with us, if he's not listening to us, then there's a problem. Because he may not be privy to all the intelligence that we get as members of the National Assembly, members of committees of defense, of national security, and investigations that are ongoing concerning insecurity in Nigeria. So we could share information with the government, and this could help him in decision making.
I want to be able to get that out there, the relationship between you lawmakers from the state and Governor Hyacinth Alia.
Well,
what kind of synergy or lack of thereof is there at this very moment in handling this situation?
Well, unfortunately, there's been not very much synergy, not very much engagement between the Benue State government and the members of the National Assembly. Since I became a member of the House of Reps, I've never been invited by the governor of Benue to Government House to have any sort of discussion. And my community experiences one of the highest levels of insecurity in Benue, but I have never been invited. I've never stepped my foot into Government House in Benue.
Have you asked to be invited?
I have asked to be invited. I have reached out several times. I have tried to do my best in terms of reaching out to NEMA to get palliatives to provide support.
Stakeholders engagements. He holds a lot of stakeholder engagements in the state. Are the lawmakers not part of these stakeholder engagements?
We're not. We're not invited. Recently, there was a security committee that was set up in the states to look at the insecurity, and we were not invited. The government of Benue doesn't think that we, members of the National Assembly, have a role to play or are important enough to be invited to security committees set up to look at insecurity in Benue.
What do you think that is? What's the problem?
It's just politics. It's just bad politics, really. What else can it be? I'm giving you a typical example. There was a security committee set up for my local government to look at insecurity in my local government, and I was not invited.
So what are you hoping will happen moving forward? What is your hope? Because clearly you can see that the politics of division that is currently happening is also affecting the rhetoric that is coming out from both members of the National Assembly. Because Honorable Philip Agbese is your colleague, and he was the one who was saying, oh, the governor is clueless, is ineffectual. He said all of those things and said because he suspended the anti-grazing law. Now we've heard from the governor's side, oh no, we did not suspend the anti-grazing law. That is not true. There's a miscarriage, and they also think that the insecurity could be sponsored by disgruntled politicians, etc., etc. So we've had this back and forth, which clearly is not helping the people on the ground who need protection as urgently as possible. And you seem to be very concerned about that. So what are you hoping will happen moving forward to ensure that there is unity unity of purpose in protecting the lives and property of the people of Benue State?
Well, it's very unfortunate, that anybody will come on national TV and say that the insecurity is sponsored by disgruntled politicians. It's just unbelievable that as a member of the National Assembly, I get gory pictures on my phone every day when there are killings. I sponsor burials. I go for condolence visits. I'm looking for palliatives. I'm writing to NEMA, and then I'll turn around and sponsor killings in my community. It's unbelievable that he will even say that on national TV without any evidence at all. It's just pure politics. He speaks like he's been appointed a spokesman to the governor for the 2027 election. He doesn't speak like a genuinely concerned indigene of the states, when it has to do with insecurity. It's just that the point is, when there's a breakdown of communication, when all the ideas that can be harmonized from every single player at every level of the state, to come up with the best possible solutions to insecurity in the state. When certain groups are being excluded for political reasons, then there's a gap in communication, and then there's a break in terms of the quality of the strategy that can be adopted to protect the community and to bring succor to those who are affected. Because apart from just the killings going on, there are IDPs, there are displaced people everywhere. So, for me as a legislator, I cannot command the military. I can speak to the Commissioner of Police, I can speak to the military authorities and appeal, make a case why they should send in more troops to my communities. But as governor, you have more authority to request. I cannot make a request for soldiers, but the governor can make a request for soldiers. That is why his role is very important. And that is why when there's a breakdown in communication, then these kind of things seem to happen.
So what are you hoping will happen? I think that's the question I'm asking.
Well, so I'm hoping that going forward, the government of Benue State will consider the lives of the people. I won't say he has not taken as a priority, but he will see the need and the importance to engage more broadly with members of the National Assembly and other stakeholders across board to harness the best possible ideas to protect the communities and protect the people of Benue State. And then also look at the best possible ways to resettle people, re-engage people who have been displaced, resettle them back to their communities or temporary community where they can become more productive. The amount of out-of-school children in Benue State is alarming. The next 10 to 15 years, we'll have our margeries in Benue State because we have a generation of children who have been born 10 to 15 years ago. My community, there's a big community called Mo in Jatoka, 2 axis of my local government, that has been displaced for almost 15 years now. So the children born from displaced parents are growing up without education, without hope, without a future. They're going to become the problem of our communities if we don't do something urgently about it. This is what concerns me every day. And this is what I expect the governments to prioritize. And that is why people keep saying that the government promised to resettle IDPs in 100 days, and that was not achieved. And people are so disgruntled about that because you are creating a generation of children in Benue State who will not be educated, who will not be productive, who will grow up hopeless, and will become a big problem for the state in a few years to come. And so this is the challenge we're facing in Benue State. It's a huge challenge. It cannot be politicized. We are open to working with the governor. We're open to working with any arm of government to bring peace to Benue State, to bring as much peace as possible. Over 40% of arable land in Benue State has been taken over by these armed headsmen.
Well, Honorable, one can certainly not miss the passion and the pain that you feel currently, as you express yourself talking about your people. And we do hope that this will remain on the front burner until peace comes to not just Benue, but every part of this country that is currently experiencing insecurity. We have to thank you very much for coming on Sunrise Today this morning. Honorable Tese Ugbo is a member of the House of Representatives representing Kwande Ushungu Federal Constituency in Benue State, and also the Deputy Committee Chairman of the House Committee on Environment. Thank you once more for coming on the program.